Welcome to the family with
Mike Gelfand.
And Jesse the Shrink.
And Andy Brandt Bernard.
Look at that. We're all here, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, this just got too good to pass up, ladies and gentlemen. Jesse the Shrink was going to head on to other things. And then he and Gelfand started talking and went, nope, I knew this would be a great connection. There's no question about it.
It was turning into a therapy session in your waiting room. And you were brilliant enough to say, let's bring this therapy session into the studio. So here we are.
So, in other words, we're only going to have 55 minutes here to talk.
That's exact. Well, no, actually 50
now, yeah. That's right. It went down to 50.
Went down to 50.
It tells you how long it's been since I've seen a therapist. Way too long, I might add.
You mean for all of us?
Well, sure. Yeah.
The way you affect us and the way you affect ourselves.
Well,
Is that
yeah,
what you're
it
saying?
works both ways. Yeah.
It does indeed. Where so many great things to talk about. We talked about, well, look, I talked to Jesse about the fact that he's a comedian and a therapist, which does make total sense.
Oh, yeah.
I would say, there are therapists who become murderers because they take the other path.
Well, one of the
Right.
funniest sitcoms of all time, Bob Newhart.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Why did you say that? Because that line always pops in my head. Remember the very heavy woman that sat in all those therapy sessions?
Yeah.
They come in, starts the session. There's like 5 guys and Bob Newhart as the therapist. The very heavy woman comes in. She puts her hand up. May I start the session? I said, yeah, absolutely. What would you like to talk about? I would just like everyone to know that I had a very successful week, and it's because of this group, because I'm with you fine people. I lost 3 pounds last week. And this big crabby old son of a bitch goes, yeah, well, you still look like you swallowed a Volkswagen. This isn't a therapy.
I can just hear him saying that. Too.
Oh, absolutely, you can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You probably remember the guy, but that's interesting. Let's get a take on. We can start with a take on that, Jesse. There were no therapists on TV until what, 35, 40 years ago? Is it now that Newhart came on?
I'd say would that be the beginning of that?
That's all right.
I actually, he had 2 shows, right? Was it?
Yeah.
Because I recently discovered, I was maybe in the last year, I discovered the first. So what was it? The Bob Newhart show was first?
I believe so, yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I'm 47. When I was a kid, I think that would have been the second show was a thing back then. But anyway, I recently discovered the original. I went and watched some old episodes and I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
Great.
So was that kind of the beginning of
That was
therapists being on TV?
Yeah.
I suppose?
pretty much. Did you know of one before that, Mike? Because I don't.
No.
I'm not aware of that. And then you had Frasier would be the next big one. Then I suppose.
Well, I suppose that's probably right.
When I went through one of my 5-year periods of depression,
See, I'm already loving this. I am already loving it.
our friend, the shrink that we know and love, he said to me, okay, he said, you're going to need to take an antidepressant. So you just have to keep working on that because I couldn't take any of them. They all just did terrible things to my body.
Sure.
And he said, and you gotta go to group therapy. And I said, you got to go to a support group. And I said, I'm not really the kind of person who benefits from that. And he said, yeah, just because you said that, you are. and he was right. People who say that are always the ones who need it the most. So he said, I have a men's group meeting on Tuesday. I said, whoa, no men. He said, what do you mean? I said, I am not going to open up to men. It's got to have to be women. And he said, well, we have a women's group, and I'll check and see if they mind having you there. He said, yeah, most of them suffer from depression, so you've got that connection. He said, however, they mostly have eating disorders. And I said, I can work with that. That's fine. So I got into this group, and they were fantastic. It was really great, and it really helped me a lot. And but then one day, this is like after about a year, great year. One day we get the news, the bad news. There's another guy going into the group. I say, no, I cannot handle that.
Not happening.
He said, nope, it's another guy. He ruined the group in about 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Why did the therapist do that?
I to this day I don't know, but it was a big mistake.
Why did he let the other guy into the group?
Yeah, I suppose.
And it helped him. So
Didn't
let's see if
help.
it helps another guy.
Yeah.
But that is kind of
Well, that's
interesting,
true.
that you can say to somebody, I was once in a therapy group for women with eating disorders,
Yeah.
and it was tremendously helpful to me.
It was great. Well, that's the thing, it's just what you need are people who you can open up to, and you need people who are accepting you. And if you've got that, you've got a group.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's any question about it. Is that a big part of it? And look, we're involving comedy in this as well, because I don't think people do realize that psychology is a very big part of comedy. How you look at things,
Yeah.
How they affect you psychologically. It's a huge part of comedy.
Isn't that what brings out your laughter, if you think about it?
No question about it.
Because we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier about maybe what some people think comedy is. But then if you really experience it,
Yep.
a lot of the experience of laughing with comedy is that you psychologically have this thing inside of you. You take in this in and you go, hey, I've been through that. I've dealt with that. I've seen that too, and whatever. And to take that and to be able to do that with people, to get that response, to go, and then there's the laughter.
I understand.
It's deeply psychological.
No question about that. Matter of fact, we as a community, as a society, have to get back into that more, because people are just not, it's my way and that's just how it is. It's funny, I've talked to Andy about this, I've talked to Mike about this, that in my life, because I at one time was a power lifter, so I was very big and muscular, but I was raised by my mother and my two sisters, because as I told you, my father was hauled off in the straitjacket, that whole deal. But there are people that think I'm very weird because I think like a woman. Even though I'm a very big man, I think like a woman more than I do a man. And that confuses a lot of people. They don't like it.
And what do you mean when you say you think like a woman?
I think I'm more caring about most people.
Okay.
And that's not to say that men don't care about people and all the rest of it. I mean, we all live different lives. I wish that's something that people would understand. We didn't all grow up the same. Mm-hmm. You had a dad and a mom. I didn't. I listened to my mother. My oldest brother would have been there, except for he was in Vietnam in the United States Marine Corps, so he wasn't there either. So I had to look to my mother and my two sisters. Luckily, they did a fantastic job, obviously. No kidding about that. But my connection to my wife, Catherine, and I, Andy's mother, have been together for 44 years, been married for 40 years. She's far too good for me. I understand that. There's no question. But it's because of the way I think. Andy, do you think it's because of the way I think that your mom and I get along so well?
Yeah, that could be.
I think that's exact, because I don't think your mom could tolerate a guy who couldn't see a woman's side of an issue. I don't see your mom being tolerant of that.
No.
He just goes, no. But that's, again, why we're talking about this is because it leads to phenomenal comedy. I brought up that story to Jesse, that, the one about when Johnny Carson's mother criticized him right in front of, on a national audience with Mike Wallace. She said that wasn't funny at all. And then Jesse and I looked at each other and went, oh, that's where the comedy came from. I see. Yeah. Because you need to make people happy, because he could never make his mother happy. Is that a big problem? Dad, mom, both of them, I just can't make them happy no matter what I do. They're never happy with me. And I mean, that's a big part of it too, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's such a relatable theme for so many people. If you really get the chance to get to know them, you get them to open up to you, which I imagine in your career, in a way, I don't really know the extent to which you get to have that come out in people, but I know for me with the therapy, that does come out a lot. It seems like a stereotypical cliche therapy thing.
I think most of us have. You grow up, you're always going to have issues with your parents. Now, and some people, it's just too much to handle. And some people, most people, I think, respond, but but not in a creative way, not in a good way.
Yeah.
Because if you're 10 years old and your mother keeps talking about, how you're let's just say, for example, your mother keeps saying, you should get all A's. You can be president someday.
Yeah.
This is a disgrace. If they, my mother always kind of said that. It was like, like she labeled me as an underachiever when I was like 10, right? Mm-hmm. By the time I was 11, I wasn't speaking to her anymore. And I never did the rest of my life.
You never did.
Because I knew she was just such a corrosive influence. But the fact of the matter is, probably it's helpful to have a mother when you're that age, someone you can communicate with. Yeah. And, but yeah, I mean, it's it's really, I mean, I first saw a shrink when I was, I guess, 10 or 11,
Mhm.
but I'd been depressed my whole life.
Right.
And a lot of that was just, I mean, a lot of that was just in the DNA.
I was just going to say, how much of that have you analyzed that to go, what?
Well, in every tree, in every branch of the family tree, you find depression, you find heroin addicts. Yeah, my brother was a heroin addict, and later on he did kill himself. And but that was the family. You look back,
Yeah.
and so that's where the drugs come in.
Yeah.
It's not enough. Therapy just isn't enough at that point.
So how did the drugs work out for you?
Well, I'm still taking them.
Well, these are pharmaceuticals,
Yeah.
not street.
Well, I always say if there's bad karma, you got to turn to big pharma.
Is that your slogan?
That's it. Yeah.
That's your slogan.
That
big
came
time?
from the therapist back in the day that said you gotta find one that works. So you did end up finding something that worked. Or
Eventually,
helped?
it took years. Yeah.
Okay.
It took years. I mean, people think that I'm going to just drop these pills every day and things will be fine. And obviously, it doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
Antidepressants don't make you happy.
Right.
They give you the opportunity to be pleased.
Yeah, it's one of the most misleading things that you see in fiction is when someone takes they take a sertraline and then they just
Yeah.
the world becomes rainbows and smiley faces. It's like that is not even close to how it works.
No.
And that's on those commercials now. I mean, if you guys see some of these commercials right now, like I know there's some bipolar medication commercials where
Right.
you see that like the mother, the wife just can't function. She looks just dead in her face. And the kids are like, "What's wrong, mom?" And it's like, "Have you tried Latuda?" And then all of a sudden she's just
Yeah.
like, "Rainbows. We love you. Oh, I love you, children." I'm like, no, that's not what I see in my clients. It doesn't work quite that.
And the
Not
image
quite
we
like
always
that.
see is of them happily interacting with their family.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because I guess that's probably the number one problem
Yeah.
depressed people have.
And I thought it was
Absolutely.
interesting you said that was the therapist message. I mean, I know I'm missing a lot of background and context and stuff,
Mm.
but I've always liked more of the approach of like with my clients, if somebody's depressed, I like the idea of depending on the situation, let's try to get to understand it a little bit because this might be something that we can do talk therapy through. It can be something about let's figure out like is there narratives that feed the depression if it comes from family circumstances, whatever it is. Can we work on it and you can get to be healthy and it's not such a big thing. But if it's either that it's too intense and too overwhelming, then an antidepressant might be of help to like make it more manageable. So you go, now we can work through it. Or to your point, if there's also a biological factor, you can use cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT type stuff as much as you want. You can use mindfulness, but if you're dealing with chemistry,
Oh God, yeah.
I mean,
Totally
if you think
different.
about it, we are chemistry, right? But why do we laugh? It's a chemical
Exactly.
It
reaction.
is, yeah.
If we're going to bring it out in people, we learn how to manipulate it. If you have chemistry that's making you depressed, you're stuck with the chemistry, So
Yeah.
if you need a medication to help,
I was looking for a therapist one time. And of course, most people I know who see therapists have gone through maybe 5 or 6 before they found someone they thought they could work with.
Yep.
So I didn't know much about this guy. And one of the first things he said to me was, "Mike, I just want you to know that no one can make you feel bad about yourself except you." And I said, "I'm leaving now." Because basically everyone can make me feel bad about myself. Now, that's what depression's all about, asshole.
It is
Yeah.
absolutely true.
that was it.
That was it.
I like the way you captured the impression that you did of him right there. Like that's totally how it felt in the
Yeah.
moment too. Right? I'm done.
No, it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, moving to the comedy side of things, just listening to you guys talk about this whole situation, and I adored this man. We just lost him a couple of months ago, but a perfect example of how incredibly extreme anxiety can make you one of the funniest people on earth. Richard Lewis.
Hmm.
Did you guys ever get to meet Richard Lewis?
Mm-mm.
I never did,
You were never in
but
studio?
he was funny.
Yeah.
And of course,
Incredibly
how could he not be funny? He was a depressed Jew.
That's exactly
And
what
how
I'm
could he
saying.
not be a comedian?
Yeah.
He was a depressed Jew.
I mean, he sat in these chairs and was the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet.
Yeah.
But you could tell by looking in his eye, this is not good.
Mhm.
I mean, he couldn't get that out of his face. He just was miserable, but his misery made us laugh
Mhm.
because he was so good at it. Then he just died, what, about a couple of months ago, Andy? Even if that long, I can't remember. Richard Lewis just
Seems
died.
like it was a couple months.
February.
Oh my
So
God!
it's
more than just
already
a couple
been
of months.
7 months.
Yeah.
7 months he's been
Almost
dead already,
7
but
months. Yeah.
Is that unfortunate that it takes such suffering to be that funny? Or maybe it's not true of everyone, but a lot of those guys and women are very, very funny.
Yeah. I mean, Robin Williams.
Robin Williams,
Yep.
another
I
example.
mean, that to me, Richard Lewis is a good example. But then when I think about Robin Williams, I mean,
Yeah.
wasn't that, I don't know about for you guys, but I would assume for a lot of us, I mean, that's just fascinating to look at the Robin Williams situation.
It is. Yep.
He, in some respects, he was just the brightest light that many of us have ever seen before. I mean, the
Mhm.
way that he could.
Well, a lot
Bring out
of
laughter
those
in us.
jokes he stole, but that
Yeah,
was
he
that was
did.
the
That's
interesting
true.
thing about
Oh, I
him.
didn't know that.
He would steal other guys' jokes and then he would write them a check.
He'd write them a
So
check,
he,
yeah.
you know, he had a lot of guilt,
Uh,
which is very constructive in this case. But he also had that other side of him where he was larcenous, and I guess he couldn't really stop that either.
Yeah.
Probably the only way he thought he could be funny.
Yeah, because he wasn't convinced himself that he was funny.
Yeah.
Because I was just going to say, then he
Yep.
had to have had
Yep.
imposter syndrome.
No, there's no question.
Yeah.
When you think about
God,
the
that's
great
so sad.
comics, most of them do suffer from anxiety,
Oh God, yes.
depression. I mean, Rodney Dangerfield, he was great, but he
Mhm.
was a coke addict.
Yeah.
And the king of them all is Lenny Bruce.
Yes, I
And
would
he had
say
some
that's-
problems, some issues. Yeah.
I remember reading the biographies of Richard Pryor and George Carlin,
Oh, yeah.
especially Richard Pryor.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
reading the stories and I'm just like, this is who I saw growing up that made me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this stuff is just unbelievably dark.
Oh,
to a
there's no-
whole level that I will never, knock on wood, experience.
Yeah.
But out of that
God,
came
funny. God.
life-changing humor.
And it was look, I mean, his first 3 albums, you couldn't even go in a record store and ask for them by name because they all 3 included the big
Oh,
N.
yeah, that's right.
All 3 of them.
Yeah.
It's like, Doug, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Super big N. And he shows him flying through the air. It's like, oh, really? But isn't it kind of sad in a way that to be truly funny, you have to suffer?
It is. It makes me think of how much in life I go back to this idea of, and you know, we conceptualize it so many ways, the yin and the yang. Pick your way that we try to conceptualize that, but
Right.
there's just always seems to be this force that goes that way. There is the dark and there is the light, and somehow it's gonna.
But that's
balance
probably
itself.
true of therapists too.
Uh-huh.
So many that I've known, you know, have and told me about, you know, the deep issues that they have. I mean, I had a therapist. He was very good. I saw him for years, but every now and then he just had to reference the fact that his father would never accept him because he was gay.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
it's like, okay, this is good. He's opening up to me. Now we're getting somewhere, right?
Unbelievable.
Now your therapist is opening up, and you can get somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
He liked that one a lot.
Well, it does happen, you know.
But it is a good point. Is that, you know, we're talking about humor and we're talking about therapy, but the human experience. I mean, I'm a therapist and I'm a human and a comedian.
Mhm.
And I've been through my own darkness. I've had my own very deep darkness.
You
Because
wanna-
I'm a
you wanna
human. I'm
talk
almost 50
about it?
years old.
Yeah, there you
We're
go.
here
Here
for
it
you.
comes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I probably have clients listening. We won't go too deep. into
Yeah,
it.
we won't
Yeah.
go too deep into
But
it.
it is the reality. And I think that
Sure.
the older that we get, if we are in tune to it and we're trying to learn and we're trying to understand the human experience, and that's come out in, like I told you earlier, it's almost 20 years for me for doing therapy sessions.
Right.
So that's a lot of human stories that I've had the privilege of having people open up and share them with me. And the reality is that the darkness has been there for everybody when they've lived long enough.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true.
But what do we do with it? Go back to that balancing then, the yin and the yang, the darkness and the light. What do we do with it? I mean, hopefully we can find something healthy to do with it, except it's part of the experience. And hopefully there can be some kind of whatever. If it's healing, if it's that we can make people laugh, we find the humor in it. I mean, whatever that might be for us.
Yeah.
Is there any level of intelligence that changes that? In other words, if you're an intelligent person, you become a comedian, you become a morning show guy, you become this, that, or the other thing. And if you're not intelligent enough to know why you feel so miserable, do you then turn to violence and crime? Because you got to handle it some way, I would assume.
I mean, I think that's a really good question.
Yeah.
And I don't just say that to cop out and not give you an answer, but
Yeah,
classic
there
therapy. Huh, that's a very good question, Tom.
Yeah, there you go.
But I
Fucking
do. I
answer
mean,
it.
I do have a few thoughts on that. But it's to be absolutely clear, I don't have a strong opinion of like, yes, Tom, it's lower intelligence. You can't cope higher you can. But I think that that's an interesting question. Like even just thinking through it in real time of, for sure, a big part of when I have clients that work with me, they open up, they trust me, and they work with me. And over time, I get to see that they do get to a healthy place.
Yeah, there you go.
That process does require a lot of cognition because, the number one thing I talk to my clients about is the vast majority of circumstances people go through. If you're going to learn how to be healthy about it, it's mindfulness. I tell a lot of my clients, I said, I think that's one of the number one Jedi tools the human brain evolved is the ability with the prefrontal cortex to use mindfulness. It means that whether we're saying if you grew up with abusive parents or whatever, and so now all of a sudden in a moment, something triggers something in you and you go into a rage in the middle of the grocery store.
Right.
Well, prices are very high.
See, there it is.
So part of getting to the point of being able to get healthier with that and not have that happen is to be able to use your noggin to learn mindfulness, to start to go, oh, I'm in the grocery store and I'm feeling this feeling coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Can you catch that and go, let me start with, even if I now lose my shit, that's okay. Because I have to start noticing it.
Right.
Because I have to start learning and going, oh, that, okay. So I tell my clients, if you lose your shit, that's okay. Did you notice it? Because then the next time I want you to notice it sooner, where you go, I notice it. And
right.
Now I bit my tongue. And now you can the next time go, I noticed it. And it stopped at a 3 instead of going to a 10 or an 11 on the 1 to 10 scale. It does require diligence mentally to stick to that and to not give up on that.
And also I would add, it requires turning off your goddamn phone.
Absolutely.
I know. I should probably go. You guys are having a good conversation. I better take this.
Okay.
All right.
You can handle it.
It's kind of, I don't know. Did you tune into the?
I just heard bits and pieces because I was in the adjoining room.
Yeah, because we were talking like an hour ago about how phones have dominated and taken over and into every facet. We were talking about movie theaters, and here we are.
Yeah.
Not to give him shit, but it's kind of funny that turns out that way.
Yeah. But people are, I mean, that almost requires weekly therapy too, to get people to, ideally turn off their phones, but at least only use them in appropriate ways.
Yeah. Cause I've been thinking a lot about that. Isn't it? It's a common thing that many of us can think and say, we need to turn off our damn phones. People need to turn off their phones. But also I am more and more looking at it as that is an adaptation and an evolution of humans to where we now do live in a world that is a large degree of how the world operates right now. Like how many people are listening right now or will listen to this very conversation on a phone?
Well, that's a constructive use though.
Right.
Yeah. I think that for me, like if I look at my kids, I had 3 boys, and when they start taking their phone with them into the bathroom, then I know they've gone too far. I feel like, but then again, being an anxious person, for me, going to the bathroom is something you really need to focus on.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to mess that up.
No. And I just think that, but for some people, perhaps it relaxes them, or I don't know, but it just seems like you could have well, of course I'm 74. So I was going to say, you can just have a little peace and quiet and get off the phone for the 20 minutes you'll be in the bathroom. Right. But for most of my kids, it's like, 90 seconds. just 90 seconds. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
And it's just not right. There's some things that just aren't right. But I'm sure that during your sessions, the clients' phones ring all the time.
And that came up earlier when we were talking too, is that, yeah, it's so pervasive. Most of my therapy sessions are now over Zoom since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it is extremely common that multiple times during a session, either I will subtly, or, they think it's subtle,
Yeah.
or they don't notice that they're even doing it.
Yeah.
They're looking down, and I know what they're doing. They're looking at messages coming in, or it's connected to their device they're talking to me through. And so messages are coming in, and I either hear the noise or I can see their eyes, and they're sometimes they're even responding.
Yeah.
And they don't even seem to recognize that that's happening. They're just doing it. They're not even saying, "Hey, sorry, I'm responding." They just do it like it's a normal thing.
Yeah. I see that all the time in people. And, you've lost them. And maybe you're just having lunch with them or something.
Yep.
And, my doctor, I should say, well, naturally I have a retinue of doctors, but the guy who I see most often, my regular doctor, he, sometimes my phone will ring when I'm seeing him. It doesn't happen often, but I often forget to turn my phone off because no one ever calls me. But of course, it's like, but if I'm there at the doctor's office, I'll get that one call of the week. And my doctor will say, "Do you need to take this call?" And it's just wonderful because he's shaming me at the same time as pretending to be sympathetic. Reminds me of my mother, basically.
Yeah, there you go. Again, it always comes back to
It
mom.
always comes back.
Always comes back to mom.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And we've been seeing the lack of a mother, like the two big stories, unfortunately, this week, especially for us locally. It's the Park Tavern story, and the 14-year-old kid who apparently didn't have a mother. His dad took care of all the kids. And I hate to say it, but you got to be suspicious about where the kid got the gun, right? Because he probably didn't get it at Walmart.
No, I don't think Walmart's carrying pistols right now. That's a whole different deal.
It's an AR-15, of course.
Yeah.
And,
is it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, of course,
God.
it's always an AR-15.
It is always an AR-15.
Or some kind of similar gun. Yeah. So, where does a kid get that gun? 99 times out of 100, they get them at home. So that's probably it. But yeah, the mother was not present. And one thing we know about the homicidal driver in St. Louis Park was that his daughters were quoted in the paper, and we eventually learned that that they didn't have a mother. Those kids didn't have one.
They didn't have one either.
Yeah, well,
so you're getting back to me thinking like a woman now. So that's why I didn't kill anybody. That's good.
And they said, the story said that they had various mothers.
Oh no, that's even worse.
I've never even seen that in a sentence before. I don't know.
Various mothers. See, this woman's now your mother. No,
yeah, right.
No, that's not going to work.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because there's always a connection between these horrible events.
Oh, there's no question.
And in this case, it's a lot of therapy could have helped, but in this case, the connection is that there was every sign that trouble was ahead, and it's just ignored.
Yeah, that's just kind of how it is, though, isn't it? Families don't want to admit that one of the pack is not thinking on a very clear level.
Well, this guy, the lawyer for Bailey, as I think that was the guy's name in St. Louis Park, he said, "Look, he's a perfectly normal, well-adjusted guy when he's not drunk. Well, he's drunk all the time. He's had five
DUIs.
Yeah. So tell me when he's sober. Let me know."
I have a question for you, for everybody. How do you even get in a car when your blood alcohol level's 0.32?
I know.
That's four times the legal
How do you
limit.
operate the door handle?
Yeah, how do you even open the door? Exactly.
I know.
God.
I think of my dad when he had dementia and insisted that he can drive.
Oh God.
Like he could never have turned the ignition on.
Oh well,
he couldn't have turned the key. No way he could have done it. But I guess when you're drunk, you can do some things. Well, they said that when he got out of the car, he fell to the ground, and I don't think it was out of shame, because he said in court, I think it was yesterday, he said, "Oh no, I don't have a drinking problem."
He did?
Wow.
Why can't he admit that?
Well, the first thought I had there was that's the power of the disease, though, right?
Well,
I mean, are you kidding me? That's what I do for me and my brain when I hear that.
Mhm.
I just go, that is just an unbelievable example of the power of the disease. That, remember, we were just talking about chemistry. It's all a chemical reaction, right? So you take somebody who, and I'm not pretending I understand this guy or anything, but that's kind of my speculation or observation, is you take something like that and you go, my God, he took these actions and then he says, I don't have a problem. How do you explain that?
Yeah.
Chemical reactions is that if this is a disease and it's controlling the brain, what does the brain do? The brain determines how we think and the conclusions that we come to. So if we go, what the hell is he thinking? Well, what I'm thinking is that brain has been sabotaged, because you just go, dear God, he doesn't even realize the absurdity of what he just said.
And what I've observed, there's a big difference between drug addicts and people who are problem gamblers, because the problem gamblers will tell you, I got a problem. Now, I don't know why this is, but they will. And I've known plenty. And of course, everybody knows a lot of drug addicts, whether it's alcohol or whatever. Yeah. And they're all in denial.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate situation. It just, the whole thing, but it's a family thing. And, right there might be another example I was talking about, thinking like a woman. 13 years ago, my wife came to me and said, you should probably stop drinking. I went, okay. Didn't have any problem.
That was it.
Yeah.
You didn't have I don't have a problem. You can.
No, I didn't argue with her about it all.
Start hiding it behind the washer and dryer.
No, I didn't do I had a brother-in-law that, not my wife's family, it's a different deal. But the boy, he had hiding places in the garage and in the basement and in the bathroom. He had, and I first noticed it because the toilet wouldn't flush. So I lifted the lid.
There was
a bottle of booze in the toilet tank.
Yeah.
That's
And a lot of times these people are surrounded by people who are also in denial of the problem person.
Oh yeah, that does happen, like a mother-son type of deal.
I mean, that's what that's classic. What we call it enabling, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's in denial. So he's a good person. He's just going through a rough patch or whatever. But you look at those behaviors of it's so predictable about people hiding in places. Man, I live in a I don't know what we call it, but like a high-rise condo building or whatever in downtown St. Paul.
Yep.
And it was very interesting. A couple of weeks ago in my building, I go to get on the elevator, and there's a printed out page that's taped on there by management in the building. And it's a picture of 3 booze bottles. And there's a message on there about somebody had repeatedly been hiding booze bottles in the shared laundry room, because we don't have our own laundry. Sure. So each floor has right. So somebody kept hiding their booze bottles behind the gas dryer. And so this message is saying that can cause an explosion. This is a fire hazard. But I'm sitting there analyzing this to the degree of whoever that is that's doing that
wants to be found.
That's not what I was.
Okay, that's
not what I was.
That's the first thought I had.
Okay,
is these are people who
interesting.
Who are they? I mean, you hear this said all the time, but I rarely see it. People who want to get caught.
Yeah, right.
Why choose a shared room like that if you don't?
Yeah.
And by the way, I haven't been able to hear in this for a long time, so I don't know if there's anything to do with that. But I can hear. I can't hear anything.
You can.
So just FYI. Probably about 15 minutes ago.
There's another set over there.
Should I try this one?
Yeah, try that.
That one's guaranteed to work.
Yeah, that one's plugged in.
Plugged into something.
What, do you want to go sit over there?
I
don't care.
Yeah.
So I can hear you guys fine. I just can't. Andy, I could hear you mumbling that you were talking, but I don't know what you're saying.
Apparently, someone's not doing a great job of putting those on the hook.
Yeah, I think that is the problem, that people just leave them on the desk and they don't charge them. And, now Gelfand's got to work the chair.
There we go.
Okay.
You got it?
No, he put the wrong ones on.
It's pouring rain.
Put the ones with, try those, yeah.
Yeah, these should be okay.
Yeah. Oh, you look like a
Jesse
sportscaster.
is learning technology here with radio.
Well, you also, honest to God, you look just like a NFL commentator.
There we
All
are.
right, back to the action. We're back to Monday Night Football. The Minnesota Vikings are ready to disappoint you again. Are you ready, Minnesota?
Yes.
Anyway, I interrupted
Where
you.
were we?
Well, I interrupted you.
Oh,
About
laundry room.
The laundry room.
And you talked about perhaps they wanted to get caught. So I think that's interesting because absolutely that has to be a thing because we know that people who are addicts, many of them, if they're not fully in denial, they there is a level at which they do want help and they want to get out of it, but they don't know how to. But I don't know if that happened here or not. I'm not sure.
Well,
but
it's the cry for help, which I find usually is not true, but every now and then.
I know though that when I looked at this and I was like, I really sat there and thinking, like trying to play this whole thing on my head, and I'm like, I can't even imagine the embarrassment that there might be for the person who's been doing that. Because guess what? If they're hiding it behind there, that means there must be somebody they're living with, they're hiding it from.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden to have it's on every floor, post on every, because I'm sure whoever it was they're hiding from is going to look at that and go, that's their 3 bottles. That's their, and they've been, and it's like, wow, that. So go back to those stories we were talking about, you kind of go, what makes a person do that? But anyway.
Well, what makes you do things like that, Mike? Damn it.
I have no idea. I always hide things in places where they can't be found.
You know what's so wonderful about Mike Gelfand and my relationship? It's been, Mike, it's almost been 50 years.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
50 years.
We're getting there.
We both were, changed by our families is a good way to put it. I'm not saying worse, better, whatever.
They're highly influential.
Highly influential. That's a good way to put it. Mike and I agree about nothing on politics. I tend to be a centrist. I tried being a Democrat, tried being a Republican. I like to be in the center. Mike and I disagree a lot on politics, but I love the guy. I don't let that crap get. Why would I let somebody's politics get in the way of my friendship with them?
Yeah.
Well, most people do, I think.
They do. And I don't know why that would be. You don't think what I think, therefore I hate you.
Yeah.
What? I didn't live the same life you did. Why would we have the same trail of thought?
I know. I certainly don't hate you. I despise you sometimes.
No, I understand that.
But hatred, no.
You sound like Catherine.
Yeah. Well, that's a compliment.
But no, you and I have had a great relationship for almost 50 years. Yeah. We're not the same person. In some ways we are, but in other ways we're not. But we don't let that get in the way of our friendship. It's ridiculous.
Well, and we are. One thing that we are linked by is neurosis.
Well, there is that. I would give you that. We do have that in common. There's no question about that.
I'm curious, though. Have you guys, in those 50 years, like if you just give me that one example, Tom, where you said you guys are different politically.
Mm-hmm.
In your 50 years of friendship, have you had moments or periods of time where there's been tension between you where
what the hell's that look?
I like it. And has it ever been to a
we've had bad vibes, but but we didn't create them. It was, but we fell for it. I fell for it anyway.
Well, we fell for it.
Yeah, well.
And what do you mean you didn't create them?
Well, because there were people who wanted us to argue about politics and to dislike each other about politics. And so it was hard, for, 6 months or so. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a situation, Jesse, to tell you the truth, what happened, we had the highest rated morning show in all of America. And when you get that successful, people come after you, not to your face. They kind of try to slide around. So, they're bad-mouthing me to Mike. They're bad-mouthing Mike to me. It just, they can't let you be that successful and not be at least a little miserable. And that's what that whole thing was about. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in my world, we call that triangulation. You guys familiar with that as a concept?
No, I want to hear about this.
So that's part of my training as a family therapist. I had mentioned before marriage therapist, but I'm a marriage and family therapist by license. So that was one of the things that I learned about family systems theory is I'm trained to look for triangulation. It's a phenomenon in humans and within systems. And the thing is, it's not healthy, but it tends to happen pretty naturally. And that's it right there. Yeah. Triangulation. Here's you, here's Mike, right? Somebody's going to come along and go, hey, Tom.
Oh, yeah.
About Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, and so I see it in family systems all the time. I see it in the workplace. And this is what you guys are describing. It's triangulation. It's toxic, but people can get sucked into it very easily, and it can wreak havoc on relationships.
I don't think people understand what it takes in your brain and in your heart and in your life to be that successful. Because someone's going to hate, many people are going to hate you because you're successful.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know why. It can't be happy for you. I mean, why? I don't really understand.
Why they want to do that?
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of another concept that I often will talk about to you. So here's the visual I like to do. So here's one spectrum. Here's another spectrum. This spectrum, humility at the bottom as the foundation, and confidence. They're not opposite. They go together.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely.
The confidence comes from humility and vice versa. The other spectrum, insecurity and arrogance.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, sure. See, right there. So if you have somebody that's going to come in and do this, you're successful, and they're going to come in and they're going to try to create this. Now, they may not be doing it consciously, but that absolutely, I guarantee you, is coming from insecurity.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Why else?
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're humble, you're not going to try to do anything like that.
It seems to me that even narcissists tend to be very insecure, and you wouldn't think that would
That's
be true.
why. That's like the perfect example of that spectrum. I've met the narcissists, and
Sure you have.
I can't do anything with them. Nothing,
Yeah,
because
I
there's
bet.
no humility. So go back to the spectrum. It always applies. If there's no humility, then what is this thing on top?
I had a friend whose her father got caught with his, as we like to say, his hand in the cookie jar. And
What was Cookie's last name?
I don't know. I think the first name was Diamond, but I'm not sure the last. But if the last name had been Diamond, she would have been Jewish. But if her first name
Right.
is Diamond, not Jewish.
Not Jewish.
Yeah, I just
You're
want to make
absolutely
that clear. So his wife wanted to divorce him, and he didn't want that because he was wealthy. And he, that's always the weird thing. I've known a lot of wealthy people. Oh, I have to give my wife half my money. Well, you do anyway.
You do anyway.
So I don't know what your problem is.
I
there.
know.
But but I think also she cooked well, and he did his best cooking away from home, and so that was the issue. And so the sword he fell on was that he was a narcissist, and he said he was in therapy because he wanted to cure his narcissism. And of course, I laughed hysterically. No, that's the whole point of being a narcissist is you don't want to change anything.
Right. If you want to cure your narcissism, then you're not a narcissist to begin with.
Right.
Yep, we can rule that out immediately, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he was a narcissist. He was probably right about that because he lied about the fact that I don't know, but
Any narcissists I've met have never come to me because they want to get better. Because
Yeah.
that's impossible.
Yeah. How can they get better? They're perfect.
It does
already.
not right. It does not make
Yeah.
sense. So it's a judge, it's their spouse, it's somebody, and then they kind of come in, and then basically there's the tone of like, well, we both know I don't really need to be here, but
yeah.
Is that being too good or too bad to your children, or could it be either? In other words, you treat your children like dirt, so they have to build themselves up just to exist in their own family. Or on the other side, you get your ass kissed constantly, so then you think you're perfect. So either you're all bad or all good. Does it have to be that extreme?
That's interesting. That's another one of those where I say that's interesting, and I will still comment, but like that is, Tom, that's one of those, it's going to make me still, I'm going to continue to think about that, but I'll tell you my initial impression on that one is that I would think that it more often would be from nothing's good enough.
Yeah.
I would think,
Mm.
because that would make a lot of sense.
So you're saying I'm a narcissist?
Do you think you're a narcissist? If you say no, you probably.
If you say no, you are. And if you
Yeah,
say
It's a
yes,
double
you are.
bind.
I can't win.
I
this
just
one.
put you in a double bind, which is like the worst psychological
I-
thing to put somebody in.
I think I'm a narcissist sometimes. How's that? Can I walk
Then you're
that
not
line?
a narcissist. Then. Yeah, no.
I'm an oscillating narcissist.
Ooh, that's a good title, an oscillating,
Oscillating
narcissist.
narcissist.
That is a good one.
The narcissists that I've known. Let's take some politicians. Many we know are narcissists.
Oh God.
The fact that I'm thinking of one is not particularly important. But what I've noticed in narcissists is that they believe other people look into a pond to see their image, not the image of the person who's looking into the pond.
Mhm.
So let's say narcissist A says that the friend of theirs, friend A, looks into the pond and he sees the narcissist image.
Right. It's borderline solipsistic.
It is, yes.
We have got to have more of these sessions. So what we're going to have to do, Jesse, is book you as a comedian, and then another time book you as a psychologist. So you could actually do some comedy.
We didn't really get into the comedy enough.
Well, the thing about it is, when you meet somebody, look, I mean, obviously Andy and Mike are not stupid people. So I knew that bringing you in here would work out really, really well, because there's a different level of thinking going on here, and it helps people. I mean, it really does. People are listening to this show for free. They don't have to pay anything to watch the show. And I guarantee you helped at least a couple of people today, probably more than that. It's like, I never considered that.
You saying that makes me feel so good. I think I'm was just going to skip my shame group today.
Well, I got to drop you off at the house anyway. So if you want me to drop you at the bar instead, not a big drinker.
No, not. I got really drunk about 50 years ago.
50?
Yeah, I've had a few beers since then. I have a beer like once a year because I don't want people to think I'm in the program.
No, I understand that. There's no question about that. The program. How's the program doing these days?
I have lots of friends who've been in the program for 40 years or so. And the thing about it is, they don't do it because they're afraid they're going to drink. They just do it because they like the friendship.
That is true.
I hear that a lot.
It's their own support group.
Yeah.
Okay, can we close with this one? I went to when I first stopped drinking, though. 13 years ago now. And then Andy, it'll be 13
was it?
years.
No.
It was 12 or 13.
Was it before
years
the
ago.
podcast started?
I think it was as it was starting.
Yeah, so it was about 12 then.
So about 12 years ago. And I went to a couple of AA meetings just to see what they were like and all the rest of it. And one of the first ones I went to, this young man came in, and if he wasn't trying to look like Elvis Presley, he was failing, because he looked exactly like Elvis Presley, right? And we come into the deal, and he's just sitting there. He's not saying much. And then this young woman had written a letter to her boyfriend who dumped her. So the therapist thought it'd be a good idea, or the leader of the group thought it'd be a good idea for her to write a letter to him and then read the letter out loud. And at one point she said, and she's crying and all the rest of it. And at one point she started talking about the fact she really missed oral sex with him. And the group she was very graphic about it. Let me put it that way.
That's too much information, even in a support group.
Even in a support group, it is, absolutely. And you see Elvis is like starting to shake his head. He's like, like a nervous twitch more than anything.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she stopped talking because she had started weeping again. And Elvis stands up and goes, "You people don't understand. I love being a drunk," and just left. And I thought, this is great theater. This is unbelievable to watch all this stuff go on. Oh, by the way, there was a woman next to me. I was much younger then. She was probably in her mid-70s. And she said, "Tom, is it okay if you hold my hand during this in case it gets sad?" Because it's, And as soon as the part about oral sex came up, she started squeezing my hand. So I had hurt like a son of a, like, man, you're stronger than I thought you were.
Well, I think it's okay as long as she didn't moisten her hand first.
Well, that's
too much.
Okay, that's going to do it. Jesse, we got to book you as a comedian and then book you as a this was unbelievable. Having a therapist among these three people is a really good idea. Don't you think, Mike?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of all the disorders I could cure if we just did this enough.
Yeah. Andy, what's your take?
Well, I don't know about cure, but maybe push them back a little.
Push them back a little.
I'm thinking I might, a few more times I might cure my dermatillomania.
What is that?
Something with skin, I'm assuming.
Skin picking?
Derma.
It's the big manifestation for me would be probably picking on my fingernails.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah. That's but it can be really serious. And I don't want to make it seem like it's just something trivial, because there are some people who wind up getting all sorts of infections and all that stuff.
Yep.
They don't even have fingernails, some of them. I heard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God, that must hurt.
Yeah.
The one I don't get is hair eating.
Yeah, then there's another one, but that's
Oh,
another
I
mania.
I'm not familiar with that.
No?
No.
Oh, some people, they will eat their own hair when they get stressed out.
I've
Okay.
seen people chew on it. Women chew.
Yeah,
on
Well,
it.
yeah.
I've seen
Yeah.
that one. But
yeah,
I mean,
but it's like, to me, it's like there's a very like primal response to hair being in my mouth.
yeah.
It's like, I want to get it out. And I
Yeah.
think pretty much all humans are like that, except for this small group.
Mhm.
But yeah, they will eat so much of their hair that it forms a bezoar, blocks their digestive tract, and they die.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow.
And I just wonder, how do you get to that point?
And that, I don't know if you guys ever do this or not, but especially lately, if for some reason I'm doing even more when I'm analyzing my behavior and human behavior, is I'm thinking about the millions of years of evolution and the DNA that we carry into who we
Mhm.
are today,
Yeah.
because that's in us. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'll do a behavior and I'll go, who was it a million years ago that I have their DNA that they did this behavior and there was some
Yeah.
primitive reason for it, and today it doesn't apply. It just looks like a strange behavior.
Because
Well,
ancestry won't help you there.
No. You got to go a little
No,
farther
right.
back.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, even animals do it. Birds will pluck out their feathers. Animals will chew on their fur.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's from before humans. It's
But they're grooming.
Well,
This
no,
goes beyond grooming.
well, yeah. It's like grooming taken to a pathological level. I
It-
guess you
yeah,
could say.
I had a cat many years ago, and this cat could not stop. Now I'm trying to picture because it's been so long, but somehow it was tugging the fur out. You know, like it was a.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's not uncommon with cats. Usually, I mean, there's a phrase for it. It's belly something or other. I can't think of anything that would rhyme with belly, but basically,
Jelly.
that's what they do. Mostly that they do is they're continually grooming their belly until all the fur comes
Which could
off.
be like an
Yeah.
OCD thing in
Yeah,
human
Cat
equivalent.
OCD.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, Tom, one to your comment though. I don't know when we're wrapping up, but this does remind me of what it's like for me to start a therapy process with people, like
Oh,
a
I
family
bet.
and individual.
I bet. Yeah.
Is that it's in the beginning, I gotta patiently kind of learn the dance a little bit. Like, who are these people?
right?
And
right.
patiently do that. But then when people are engaged in it in the process, and what are we going to learn from it? We don't necessarily know yet, but it just starts to evolve, and these conversations start to happen. And pretty soon we started here, but now we're all the way over here.
Right.
And to your point of people listening to this, whether it's because they relate with it or they're learning something new, even for myself in doing this, I'm going to walk away changed.
We all will.
You can't help it. It's
Yeah, we all will.
it's such a cool part among many things of humanity to be able to do something like this.
Why don't we do this? Why don't you plug where you're going to appear
Ooh,
this week?
As a comic.
yes.
As a comic.
Yes,
yeah.
that is, so I will be doing a therapy session with Michael Smith tomorrow. No,
Yeah, there you go.
I'm
Michael
gonna be-
Smith. That's a good name.
I will be producing the very first Friday night comedy show at Gambit Brewing in Lowertown, St. Paul tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
So tickets are on sale. We just got done doing Tuesday night, the Funniest Person in St. Paul finale there. That was a packed house. We had over 100 people show up for that.
Wow.
So yeah, Gambit Brewing. Anybody that likes stand-up comedy, go to Gambit Brewing, Lowertown, St. Paul tomorrow night. Go to their website, gambitbrewingco.com. You got all the details. We've got a weekly open mic that I run there. The staff there are amazing. The owners are amazing. It's really a special room. You guys, if you like comedy, and even if you don't go for comedy, go to Gambit Brewing sometime. I'm telling you genuinely, it's a place I gravitate towards because it's a special place. It's a very good vibe there.
And what's the street location?
So it's 4th Street East, right along the light rail in Lowertown, kind of by the depot.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's right over by the depot. So it's kind of tucked away. It doesn't quite stand out, but it is like Cheers. And I mean that when I say it's like Cheers. You're walking along the sidewalk, and now they have a A-frame sign up that says, stand-up comedy and whatever here. And you walk down the stairs,
Oh, yeah.
and you go into it, and it's just like the Cheers setup.
Magnificent.
So yeah, Gambit Brewing. I will say it a million times. It's a fantastic place, whether you go for comedy or not. But for comedy's sake, tomorrow night, 8:00 is the show. You can go to their website and get tickets, get information. We got a great lineup. Jeff Foser, you can attest to this. You know him very well from over the years. He's been on your show a bunch of times.
Yep.
Jeff Foser is a wonderful, wonderful human being. He really is. He's a good friend of mine. He's a fantastic headliner. He's one of the best comedians in St. Paul, and he'll be headlining the show tomorrow night.
It's a great ending to a show. That is going to
Yeah.
do it. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Got a picture in my pocket reminds me of this was before. Every time I hear the singing reminds me how you talking